Are you looking to take your personal finances to the next level? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to the Monday Money Tip Podcast, presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not, with your host, Joseph Sangle.
Well, welcome to the Monday Money Tip Podcast. My name is Joe Sangle, and this is presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. Now, I'm fired up about this episode of the podcast because it's a special episode, and it's focused on a success story. And the success story we shared in a fairly recent episode, maybe about 10 episodes ago or so. We'll have a link to it in the show notes, but we shared a success story about Sean and Laura, who saved a bunch of money on car insurance. They found out that 15 minutes less, they could save 15% or more in car insurance. Unfortunately for Geico, it was with another company. And I actually have been in touch with Sean and discovered that they have an even larger success story. And so I had a chance to meet up with him in person. And so we're in the studio recording a little special success story episode of the podcast. So Sean, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much.
Is this your very first time ever on a podcast?
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so right now, Megan wasn't able to join us for this, but she'll be able to certainly celebrate your success. So I'll let you share the big success. What is the big success?
Well, September 15th, we will no longer have any debt. We'll be paying off our house.
That's incredible. And so September 15th, so that's before we're releasing this podcast, but by the time this released, you're going to have that document that says you are debt-free on your house.
I can't wait.
That's going to be unbelievable. And I remember when Wells Fargo sent me, I actually logged in, and instead of saying paid off, it said PD off. And I'm like, I'd like to buy some vowels, an A and an I, and I think I can afford them since I don't have a mortgage payment anymore. And so I hope when you check it out, they'll actually spell out paid off. And so you're how old?
33.
You're 33. And so tell us a little bit about your family, kiddos, that sort of thing.
I have one son, Theodore. He's 2.5 years old, and I have a wife, Laura. She's 32, and this is the last thing on our list until we're debt free.
That's awesome.
Can't wait.
And so you got married, and you were able to somehow or another stay on the path of the straight and narrow financially and be able to pay off all your debt, including the house. How does that feel?
Like a huge burden's lifted.
How many friends? How old are you?
33.
You're 33.
Yep.
So listen to this, folks. Like, this is a reason to celebrate and have a success story and to learn from this. And so you're 33 and you're going to be debt free, including the house. How many of your friends live in paid for houses?
0 that I know of.
Yeah. And I would say that is pretty much the norm. In fact, many people in their 60s and in their 70s still have house payments. They're still paying them. Mm-hmm. So something influenced you, something inside of you made you commit to this early, I would say. So kind of share some of those influences. What kind of got your attention that said, hey, I would make this a goal and I think I could achieve it in my 30s?
I don't know if I had a goal to have it done this early. I just knew I wanted to pay it off as soon as possible. Growing up, heard all about Dave Ramsey, and then you starting your business. I've known about it since you started it. So it's always been there when I was 16 years old in my head. Get out of debt as soon as possible. So that's what I did. I can't believe it's been only 9 years. So
yeah, so it's been 9 years since you bought this house.
Yeah, first payment was July 2011. Last payment will be September 2020.
So for those of you who listen, who've been at my financial learning experiences, when we calculate your debt freedom date, and what Sean's talking about is rung number 7 of the I Was Broke, Now I'm Not ladder, where you pay off your house and your business debt if you have it. And I always say, when you calculate that, you're going to see that for most people, they could be debt free, including the house, even if they haven't bought the house yet, in less than 10 years from this date. And what you're saying is it took you less than 10 years.
Yep.
And so let me guess, you got a massive inheritance that helped you pay it off.
No.
You won the lottery.
I wish.
You started a wildly successful business and made millions of dollars.
Not yet.
Your house only cost $12,000.
That would be great.
Okay.
When I first bought it.
But what you're saying is none of those are true.
Yep.
And so it means that you did a lot of hard work, you earned income, and instead of going and spending it all on fun things, you used it to pay off the house and pay off your other debt. And I think it's important for everybody to know the reason that Sean has heard about what I was doing since he was 16 years old is because Sean is my nephew. And I remember the days you would come up and watch Purdue University play some football, usually lose. Mm-hmm. And then you ended up going to Purdue. You got a degree in engineering as well.
Yep.
And so numbers are kind of a thing you like to do. And so along the way, when you bought this house, I remember distinctly when you bought this house, you were single. I don't know if you had any like real hot prospects really of getting married in the near future. And you bought like a 5-bedroom house, I remember. Is it 5-bedroom?
Yes.
I think I've went to this house one time a while ago, but it was 5 bedrooms, and you had an idea about, it's now known as house hacking, but back then you were doing it and didn't even know it had a name called house hacking. So explain to the listeners what house hacking is.
Well, because I had all those other rooms that I didn't need, and I knew coworkers who wanted to live closer to work because they had their loved ones further away doing other work. They just wanted to live somewhere during the week, so I rented out my rooms to help pay my mortgage.
That's awesome. And so this is called house hacking, and so you work a job for the government. You are a federal employee. However, many of these individuals you work with are on like 1-year contracts or something like that, and so they don't move their families immediately to the area. So that's what Sean's meaning. Just to clarify for our listeners. Their family lives elsewhere. They're not moving and relocating their family for something that might be a shorter term contract. So they're coming in, Monday morning, they drive in or fly in. They stayed 3 or 4 nights.
Until Friday.
So they'd stay Monday night, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, and then Friday they out of there to go back to their families.
Yep.
And so a lot of times you had a house with far less than the full number of people that were renting from you. Mm-hmm. But at what was the most number of people you had renting from you at the peak time at one time?
3.
3 people.
And that was pretty consistent for about 4 years.
And so I want you to explain that for individuals, because this is a way. Now, it's extraordinarily uncomfortable for a lot of people to think about sharing their house with other people. But there's ways to do this that are less uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And then we'll talk about the financial benefit side of it. So how did you find people? How did you, did you just post on Craigslist, Facebook, hey, I've got rooms for rent?
I met most of these people at work in a new employee orientation type setup. And then they were just talking about how much they travel. And I was like, hey, you could just crash in my house for a very small amount of money. That would save you gas money too. And
yeah.
They took me up on it, and since I bought the house only a year after I graduated, I was still used to having roommates at the time, so it was nothing new to me. And I had the weekend to myself most of the time anyway.
That's pretty amazing. And so did you sign official contracts with them, or was it just kind of a handshake agreement?
Handshake only.
And so this, I don't recommend this for every single person, but it does work. And this is the handshake economy. And this is saying, hey, your word is your word. And I'm going to trust you on that. And they paid money. So if you had 3 renters, was that enough to cover your mortgage most months?
Almost completely. It got me to about 90%.
90%.
Yep.
And so the reason this is called house hacking is because you can continue to make your mortgage payment. You have these people renting rooms from you. They have money that they're giving you. And a lot of times you can pay double payments almost.
Yep.
Did you continue to make your payment yourself too?
Yep.
Yeah. And so somewhere along the line, Laura comes into the picture.
Yep, I had those roommates until a month before I got married.
There we go. So this is one part of house hacking is usually when you're married, one or both of you aren't really willing to have a whole lot of house guests. Mm-hmm. And so you said, all right, you all got to get on out of here. And by that time, how many years into owning the house was that?
5 years.
About 5 years. Yep. And how much of your house had you paid off by that time?
Man, I don't know, 40% maybe.
About 40%.
Yep.
So think about that. Was it on a 30-year note?
Yep.
So I want our podcast listeners to think about that. Think about it. What a unique way to really get ahead, because the truth is, if you have a 30-year note and you pay just the regular payment, in those first payments, that first year payments, only 2% of your payment goes to principal. Mm-hmm. So if you add up over 5 years, maybe that's 12%, 10%, but you gain a little bit each year. so maybe it's 12%. But Sean's saying he knocked out close to 40%. It's just rough numbers, but about 40%.
Yeah.
And as a result, that gave a huge kickstart. Now, did you ever refinance?
No.
So why didn't you do that? Did you have a good interest rate at the start, or?
It was 4.75, but then the rate started going back up until recently, and I'm like, there's no reason to refinance because I'm going to pay this off.
and so I think this is just really, really intriguing. It's so valuable for our listeners to hear because, number one, it's inspirational. You beat me by 5 years. I was 38 when I sent in my last house payment and paid off a house. And I think it's very inspirational, but it's also informational because a lot of people wonder how. It's one of the top questions I get from people, once they pay off their other debt is, how do I get rid of the house more swiftly? And they come to me with all these different schemes. People have these schemes where they do these home equity lines of credit and all this stuff, and you pay $3,000 to have this smoke and mirror system that really, when you boil it all down, how do you pay off the house faster? Well, you pay more money per month, and it suddenly pays off faster.
Yep.
So you have a 30-year note, but you're going to pay it off in less than 10 years.
Yep.
Even though it's a 30-year note, no prepayment penalty, it's just going to be gone.
Yep.
And so in a minute, we're going to talk about kind of what's next for you. What does this open up for you? Usually people don't pay off the house just to pay it off. They pay it off because they have something different and better they'd like to use the money for. But I want to kind of talk about, during this time period where you've been so focused, what have you had to sacrifice to really enable you to be able to pay off the house more rapidly?
I feel like they were very minor things. It was just saying no a couple of times to, going out and drinking, which was the thing to do when I was younger, because you could rack up a huge bill doing that.
So the partying, going, hanging out with friends.
Yeah.
I always say the largest expense for young people, especially young single people and even young couples who are kid-free, is the food bill. It's the entertainment bill. They just go blow it because they don't want to sit around the house alone. I mean, it's kind of really boring.
Yep.
And so you were sharing a story with me earlier as you were visiting this weekend about a time where you said, hey, I think we're within sniffing distance of closing this deal in 2020. We could pay this house off. You were having a conversation with Laura, and it kind of didn't go perfectly. So kind of share the story as you shared with me.
Well, I talked to Laura. I was like, I think we can get done with our loan by the end of 2020 if we make these minor changes. One was reducing how much blow money that we got each month. And like all things, if you're not into Excel, you just glance over and she was like, yeah, that's great. Until the next month when she was like, this stack seems a little lower than it used to be. What's going on? I'm like, this is what you agreed to.
So to explain this, you are telling me that you still use the very original, the revision number 1 of the I Was Broke Now I'm Not budget.
Yep.
Yeah, like you download it and you still use that Excel budget. I'm sure you've tweaked it to make it kind of your own, with your own little formulas or colors or anything.
I just changed the titles of
the month.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you guys use cash envelopes pretty much?
No. Because your original sheet got uploaded to Google Drive, it allows me to have multiple sheets on there. So I can have, this is what we spent so far, so she can pull it up because I shared it with Laura. She can see how much we spent for the month, and we just put everything on our credit card because points.
Yeah, absolutely, because of points. And so, some of our listeners, they also listen to Dave Ramsey, and they listen to other people, and I really tell everybody, go get your financial knowledge from, several sources, and then figure out what works right for you. Mm-hmm. And many people are familiar with Dave Ramsey saying, chop up all the credit cards. And I had to do that because I couldn't control me. But then after 6 years of living with no credit cards, and I had changed and my financial behavior had changed, I went back and got credit cards, and now I don't have any credit cards at all. Credit card debt. Mm-hmm. I've never paid a dime of interest. I've just paid off it multiple times a month, really. And with our organization, we process nearly $1 million a year. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of points.
Yeah.
And you're a beneficiary of that. Usually every summer you get a hotel room free, points-wise. Several members of our family do because I redeem those points for a hotel. And you know what? I didn't have to pay anything extra for that. So I like my credit cards.
Yep.
And so you're saying you're getting your points. So I think it's interesting. You use a budget. Mm-hmm. You keep track of your expenses. You use a credit card to pay everything. You pay it off every month. Mm-hmm. And so would you credit the budget with the reason is that one of the reasons why you've been able to pay off the house more rapidly?
Yes, definitely, because I knew where the money was going. Otherwise, beforehand, it was, I hope I have the money in the bank on Friday when the check clears.
So, yeah, there we go. And that's where a lot of people are at. I hope this check clears. And you don't have that fear anymore when you have a budget and you know where every dollar is going and you have money in the bank, some margin.
Well, speaking of that, coming down here, our tires worn out a lot faster than I realized and had to get a whole set of tires.
Yeah, that's exactly what you want to do on vacation is buy new tires.
Yeah, so September is going to be an expensive month, but we
were
ready for it.
Yeah, you got the house paid off. You can afford some tires. I'm pretty sure of it. So let's talk about the what's next. So you freed up this money. You don't have to share numbers, but when you're aggressively paying off a house like that, you're paying sometimes 2 or 3 mortgage payments a month. About where have you been at on average as you've been aggressively focusing on that debt payoff?
We've been about 3 times.
3 times.
And before the COVID hit, I was about 4 times.
Okay. So that's huge. And I know that I want our listeners to hear this. When you get focused and you get rid of your other debts. So think about it. If you had no car payment, no truck payment, no boat payment, student loan payment, credit card payment, furniture payment, I owe mom and dad payment, whatever the other payments are, and you can redirect that money towards your mortgage, you can make 2 or 3 or 4 payments a month. And I was able to do about that as well. And that's what allows that 30-year mortgage to go away 20 years sooner. Mm-hmm. So now you've freed up that money.
Yep.
2, 3, sometimes 4 mortgage payments. So what's the next thing?
Right now is to build up the emergency fund again, and then start increasing how much we're putting into 529 for Theo's college. Then start looking at Roth IRAs, maybe opening a separate one from our work. That way I have more investing opportunities, and hopefully real estate probably in the next year.
Yeah, so it's to fund more dreams. So just to unpack that really quickly, your son's 2.5. He would either go to college at early 18 or early 19, or late 18. I'm not sure exactly. His birthday, I think he'll be a younger kid going into college because of his birthday. Mm-hmm. So you've got 16 years.
Yep.
No house payments. I'm pretty sure you can fund some college.
I hope so.
You're looking to do real estate, not because you just love real estate, but because you've had a taste of renting and it worked out well for you. Yeah. And so that's another form of preparing for retirement and making sure you can fund some big time dreams. I'm sure Laura has an idea of one thing she wants to improve at the house level.
Oh, definitely. We've already started saving and investing to redo our whole house since it hasn't been touched in 30-some years.
Yeah.
A lot of things need to be updated.
So one of the things that I found interesting as we were paying off our house, and I want to share this with our listeners, is if you don't step on the gas and get the job done of paying off the house, then it's better to not step on the gas at all, in my opinion. And the reason being is stuff wears out on a house. Mm-hmm. And when you're so hyper-focused on paying off the mortgage, I'm getting rid of this mortgage no matter what, and I'm paying 3 and 4 house payments a month on it, it's hard for you to do that and upgrade the kitchen and replace the roof and get new siding or paint the house or put in new landscaping or redo the bathrooms or the master bath. It's hard to do both of those things at the same time. And I know for me, I allowed it to drag on a little bit. And it actually hurt me because I went too long on repainting my house. Mm. And I ended up having to pay a whole bunch extra because it had wood siding house that was, and it started to curl and all that stuff because I didn't keep good paint on it. And so I said, what would this have looked like if I would have dilly-dallied even longer? And so I just encourage everybody who's focused on paying off your house, and I really encourage you to use the early payoff calculator. It helps you understand, hey, if I pay this much extra per month, this is how much faster it'll pay off. And it helps you make the determination of, do I want to live in nuclear winter for a while and pay 7 house payments a month? Or, do I want to still live and breathe and go on a vacation once a year and pay, maybe it's 1.5 or 2 house payments a month? But you have to make that decision to get after it if you're going to get after it, so that you don't end up with a whole bunch of deferred maintenance that ends up costing you big time for the next 2 years after you've paid it off. I don't know if you feel like you're in that place, or you feel like you've maintained at least the important things.
The important things are still fine. There's just the layout of the house that we would like to change. I've already had to change the furnace and heat pump once, so that should be good for a while, I hope. And about another 10 years on the roof. So I know these things are coming, been saving for it, so just waiting for it to happen.
That's great. And so do you have any other dreams? Like, do you have like big dreams of a trip around the world, or any of that type of stuff you want to fund at some point in time?
Definitely. I would love to do one of those around the world cruises when I retire, but I want to retire at 57 as soon as I can from the federal government. So that's only 24 years.
Yeah.
So I got to get on it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna wrap it up for everybody to kind of share a couple things that I've learned. And one of the things that I've learned is that retirement, or maybe if you have young children like Sean has, is it can seem mythological that date will happen, that Theo goes to college. I mean, he's 2.5, he's learned to talk well, he's walking, he's very independent, but very fast. I mean, it's fast. He'll be going to college. Maybe Purdue, maybe some other college. But he's going to go to college. And I remember the day I started my 529 for my eldest, my daughter, and I was like, man, this is like, I'm putting money in this, and this is like theoretically way off in the distance. And 3 years ago, I dropped her off at college. And I had this epiphany that said, you know what? The way I'm viewing retirement right now is the exact same way I was viewing my daughter's going to college. And you know what? My daughter went to college. So pretty sure retirement, that day's coming. And so it really gave me this great second wind of urgency that says, hey, you got to make sure that you're doing what's right to invest, to make sure you can, yes, fund dreams in the meantime, but also be able to fund the longer term dreams. And so you've positioned yourself to do that. And that's incredible. And I appreciate you sharing your success story. What is one word of encouragement you would give to our listeners?
I would talk to people about what your goal is, because I've talked to people from my church that I'm close with. I'm like, I want to get this house paid off, and they ask me about it all the time. And then when you are doing a really good job, your bank seems to send you a letter every month saying, please take out more.
Oh,
and I'm like,
they want you to borrow more.
I guess I'm doing something correct.
and I think that's really good. Accountability is so good. Sharing a bold goal. I guarantee you, your friends who are 33 plus or minus a few years, they're totally confused as to if that's possible. Yep. And it's very inspirational. Yep. And so now you're going to get the high five and be debt free and move towards the next set of dreams. And so congratulations. Thanks so much for taking time to share your success with the Monday Money Tip audience.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Awesome. Fired up. And I'm personally just want to say very proud of you and Laura. Great job.
Thanks.
Awesome. Hey, for everybody in closing, I encourage you to check out the show notes. We're going to have a link to the early debt payoff calculator. We're also going to have a link to Sean and Laura's earlier success story on how they saved on car insurance. And we're also going to share a couple other of the show notes. I encourage you to check it out, share it with your friends, and then set that goal, pay that house off, and get fired up. Have a great Monday, everybody.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Monday Money Tip Podcast, presented by I Was Broke, Now I'm Not. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave a review and subscribe. And for more great content and to stay up to date, visit iwbnin.com. We'll catch you next time.